Audiobooks presents The Science of Being Great. This book is more than a guide. It's a transformative tool for anyone who wants to reach their full potential and live a life of fulfillment. Through clear and direct principles, you'll discover the path to power and ability and learn why this work has impacted generations. It's a science, not mere speculation, and its method has been proven to work for those who apply it sincerely. Below is the author's preface. Preface by the author. This book is for men and women, young or old, who want to make the most of life by getting the most out of themselves. I have tried to show, in a simple, clear way and without unnecessary words, the path to power and capability. It is written so that busy people can read it. I know that the system set forth here will work. It cannot fail. And I know that the men and women who practice these methods of action with sincere hearts will enter into a powerful life. They will be the children of the Most High and will be among the great ones of the world. I hope that you who read this will be among them. As its title states, the book deals with science, not speculation. The monistic theory of the universe, the theory that matter, mind, consciousness, and life are all manifestations of one substance, is now accepted by most thinkers. If you accept this theory, you cannot deny the logical conclusions you will find here. If the reader wishes to fully understand the monistic theory of the cosmos, I recommend reading Hegel and Emerson. Also read The Eternal News, a book by James Joseph Brown. Some clarifications can also be found in a series of articles I wrote, which were published in the Nautilus magazine during the year 1909, under the title, What is Truth? No mere reading of books can develop a great personality. Nothing can make you great but thought. Therefore, think, think, think. Chapter 1. Anyone can become great. There is a principle of power in every person. By the intelligent use and direction of this principle, a human being can develop their own mental faculties. A person has an inherent power by which they can develop in any direction they please, and there appears to be no limit to the possibilities of their development. No one has yet become so great in any faculty that it's not possible for someone else to become greater. This possibility lies in the original substance from which people are made. Genius is the omniscience that flows into a person. Genius is more than talent. Talent may be just one faculty developed out of proportion to others, but genius is the union of person and God in the acts of the soul. Great people are always greater than their works. They are in connection with a limitless reserve of power. We don't know where the limit of human mental powers is. We don't even know that a limit exists. The power of conscious development is not given to the lower animals. It is solely the possession of humanity and can be developed and increased by us. Lower animals can, to a great extent, be trained and developed by people. But people can train and develop themselves. Only they have this power, and they have it to a seemingly unlimited extent. The purpose of life for a person is development, just as the purpose of life for trees and plants is growth. Trees and plants grow automatically and along fixed lines. A person can grow as they will. Trees and plants can only develop certain possibilities and characteristics. A person can develop any power that is, or has been, demonstrated by anyone, anywhere. Nothing that is possible in spirit is impossible in flesh and blood. Nothing that a person can think is impossible to put into action. Nothing a person can imagine will be impossible to achieve. A person is formed for development, and they are under the necessity of developing. It is essential to their happiness that they advance continuously. Life without progress becomes unbearable, and a person who ceases to progress tends to become imbecilic or insane. The greater and more harmonious and well-rounded their development, the happier a person will be. There is no possibility in any one person that is not present in all people. But if they advance naturally, no two people will become the same person or even be alike. Every person comes into the world with a predisposition to develop along certain lines, and development is simpler for them along that line than in any other way. This is a wise arrangement, for it provides infinite diversity. It is as if a gardener threw all his bulbs into a basket. To the superficial observer, they would be alike, but the growth would reveal a tremendous difference. Thus, men and women are like a basket of bulbs. A person might be a rose and add brilliance and color to some dark corner of the world. They might be a lily and teach a lesson of love and purity to every eye in sight. They might be a clinging vine and hide the rough outlines of some dark rock. They might be a great oak among whose branches the birds will nest and sing, and beneath whose shade the herds will rest at noon. But each one will be something worthwhile, something rare, something perfect. There are unimaginable possibilities in ordinary life. In a broad sense, there are no ordinary people around us. In times of national stress and danger, the street corner bums and the town drunkards become heroes and statesmen through the quickening of the principle of power within them. There is a genius in every man and woman waiting to be brought to light. Every village has its great man or woman, someone to whom everyone goes for advice in times of difficulty, someone who is instinctively recognized as being great in wisdom and insight. To this person, the attention of the whole community turns in times of local crisis. They are tacitly recognized as being great. They do small things in a great way. They could also do great things if they undertook them. Anyone can. You can, too. The principle of power gives us exactly what we ask of it. If we only undertake small things, it only gives us power for small things. But if we seek to do great things in a great way, it gives us all the power there is. But be careful not to undertake great things in a small way. We will speak more of this later. There are two mental attitudes a person can take. One makes them like a football. They have resilience and react strongly when force is applied to them, but they originate nothing. They never act from themselves. There is no power within. People of this kind are controlled by circumstances and environment. Their destinies are decided by things external to themselves. The principle of power within them is never really active. They never speak or act from within. The other attitude makes a person like a fountain. Power flows from their center. They have within themselves a well of water that springs up into eternal life. They radiate strength. The awakening is felt by their environment. The principle of power in them is in constant action. They are self-reliant. They have life in themselves. No greater good can come to any man or woman than to become self-reliant. All life experiences are designed by Providence to force men and women to become self-reliant, to compel them to cease being creatures of circumstance and to master their environment. In their lowest state, a person is the sport of chance and circumstance and the slave of fear. Their acts are all reactions resulting from the impact of forces in their environment. They act only as they are driven. They originate nothing. But the humblest savage has within them a principle of power sufficient to master all that they fear, and if they learn this and become self-reliant, they become like one of the gods. The awakening of the principle of power in a person is the true conversion, the passing from death to life. It is when the dead hear the voice of the Son of Man and come forth and live. It is the resurrection and the life. When awakened, a person becomes a child of the Most High, and all power is given to them in heaven and on earth. There is nothing in any person that does not exist in you. No person has ever had more spiritual or mental power than you can attain, or done greater things than you can accomplish. You can become what you want to be. Chapter 2. Heredity and Opportunity. you are not prevented from achieving greatness by heredity. No matter who or what your ancestors may have been, or how unlettered or humble your lineage, the path upward is open to you. There is no such thing as inheriting a fixed mental position. No matter how small the mental capital we receive from our parents, it can be increased. No one is born incapable of growth. There are mental tendencies, such as a tendency to melancholy, or cowardice, or ill temper. Yet all such unconscious tendencies can be overcome. When the real person awakens and arises, they can cast them aside quite easily. Nothing of this sort needs to hold you down. If you have inherited undesirable intellectual tendencies, you can eliminate them and put desirable ones in their places. An inherited mental trait is a thought habit from your father or mother that has been impressed on your subconscious mind. You can replace the impression with its opposite by forming the opposite habit of thought. You can put a habit of joy over a tendency to despondency. You can overcome cowardice or bad temper. Heredity may also count for something in an inherited skull conformation. There is something to phrenology, though not as much as its exponents claim. It is true that different faculties are located in the brain, and that the power of a faculty depends on the number of active brain cells in its area. A faculty whose brain area is large is capable of acting with more power than one whose cranial part is small. Hence, people with certain skull conformations show a talent for being musicians, orators, mechanics, and so on. It has been argued that a person's cranial formation must, to a great extent, decide their rank in life. But this is a mistake. It has been discovered that a small section of the brain with many fine, active cells gives as powerful an expression to the faculty as a larger brain with more rudimentary cells. And it has been found that by applying the principle of power to any section of the brain, with the will and purpose of developing a particular talent, the brain cells can be multiplied indefinitely. Any faculty, power, or talent you possess, no matter how small or rudimentary, can be multiplied. You can multiply the brain cells in that specific area until they act with the power you desire. It is true that you can act more easily through those faculties that are now most developed. You can do, with the least effort, the things that come naturally. But it is also true that if you make the necessary effort, you can develop any talent. You can do what you want to do and become what you want to be. When you fix on some ideal and proceed as outlined in the following pages, all the power of your being is turned into the faculties necessary for the realization of that ideal. More blood and nerve force go to the corresponding sections of the brain, and the cells are quickened, enlarged, and multiplied in number. The proper use of a person's mind will build a brain capable of doing what the mind wants to do. The brain does not make the person. The person makes the brain. Your place in life is not fixed by heredity, nor will you be condemned to the lower ranks by circumstances or lack of opportunity. The principle of power in a person is sufficient for all the demands of their soul. No possible combination of circumstances can hold them in a low position if they make their personal attitude correct and determine to rise. The power that formed humanity and destined it for growth also controls the circumstances of society, industry, and government. And this power is never separated from itself. The power that is in you is in the things around you, and when you begin to advance, things will organize for your advantage. As described in later chapters of this book, humanity was formed to develop, and all external things were designed to promote its growth. As soon as a person awakens their soul and enters the path of progress, they find that not only God is with them, but nature, society, and their fellow beings are with them as well, and all things work together for their good if they obey the law. Poverty is no barrier to greatness, for poverty can always be removed. Martin Luther, as a boy, sang in the streets for bread. Linnaeus, the naturalist, had only $40 to educate himself. He mended his own shoes and often had to beg meals from his friends. Hugh Miller, a stonemason's apprentice, began to study geology in a quarry. George Stephenson, inventor of the locomotive engine and one of the greatest civil engineers, was a coal miner, working in a pit, when he awakened and began to think. James Watt was a sickly child and not vigorous enough to be sent to school. Abraham Lincoln was a poor boy. In each of these cases, we see a principle of power in the person that lifted them above all opposition and adversity. There is a principle of power in you. If you use it and apply it in a certain way, you can overcome all heredity, master all circumstances and conditions, and become a great and powerful personality. Chapter 3. The Source of Power. The brain, body, mind, faculties, and talents of a person are merely the instruments they use to demonstrate greatness. In themselves, they do not make them great. A person can have a great brain and a good mind, strong abilities and brilliant talents, and still not be a great person unless they use all of these in a great way. That quality which enables a person to use their abilities in a great manner makes them great. And to this quality we give the name wisdom. Wisdom is the essential basis of greatness. Wisdom is the power to perceive the best ends to aim for and the best means to attain those ends. It is the power to perceive the right thing to do. The person who is wise enough to know the right thing to do, who is good enough to desire to do only the right thing, and who is capable and strong enough to do the right thing, is a truly great person. They will be instantly marked as a personality of power in any community, and people will take pleasure in honoring them. Wisdom depends on knowledge. Where there is complete ignorance, there can be no wisdom, no knowledge of what is right to do. Human knowledge is comparatively limited, and therefore their wisdom should be small, unless they can connect their mind with a greater knowledge than their own and draw from it, through inspiration, the wisdom that their own limitations deny them. This they can do. This is what great men and women have actually done. Human knowledge is limited and uncertain. Therefore, a person cannot have wisdom in themselves. Only God knows all truth. Therefore, only God can have true wisdom or the right attitude to be taken at all times, and a person can receive wisdom from God. Let me give an illustration. Abraham Lincoln had a limited education, but he had the power of perceiving the truth. In Lincoln, we see with prominence the fact that true wisdom consists in knowing the right thing to do at all times and under all circumstances, in having the will to do the right thing, and in having sufficient talent and ability to be competent and capable of doing the right thing. In the days of abolitionist confusion and during the period of secession, when all other men were more or less confused about what was right or what should be done, Lincoln never had doubts. He saw beyond the superficial arguments of the pro-slavery men. He also saw the impracticability and fanaticism of the abolitionists. He saw the right goals to be achieved, and he saw the best means to achieve those goals. It was the fact that people recognized that he perceived the truth and knew the right thing to do that made him president. Any person who develops the power to perceive the truth, and who can show that they always know the right thing to do and can be trusted to do what is right, will be honored and will rise. The whole world is eagerly looking for such people. When Lincoln became president, he was surrounded by a host of so-called competent advisers, of whom almost none agreed with each other. Sometimes they all opposed his policies. Sometimes almost the entire North opposed what he set out to do. But he saw the truth when others were deceived by appearances. His judgment was rarely or never wrong. He was at once the most successful statesman and the best soldier of the time. Where did he, a relatively uneducated man, get this wisdom? It was not due to some peculiar formation of his skull or some refinement of the texture of his brain. It was not due to some physical characteristic. It was not even a quality of mind by virtue of a superior power of reasoning. The processes of reasoning do not very often arrive at the knowledge of the truth. It was thanks to a spiritual discernment. He perceived the truth, but from where did he perceive it, and from where did the perception come? We see something similar in Washington, whose faith and courage, thanks to his perception of the truth, held the colonies together during the long and often seemingly hopeless struggle of the Revolution. We see something of the same in the phenomenal genius of Napoleon, who always knew, in military matters, the best course to adopt. We see that Napoleon's greatness was more in nature than in Napoleon, and we discover in Washington and Lincoln something greater than Washington or Lincoln. We see the same thing in all great men and women. They perceive the truth, but the truth cannot be perceived until it exists, and there can be no truth until there is a mind that perceives it. Truth does not exist except in the mind. Washington and Lincoln were in contact and communication with a mind that knew all knowledge and contained all truth. The same applies to all who manifest wisdom. Wisdom is obtained by reading the mind of God. Chapter 4. The Mind of God. There is a cosmic intelligence that is in and through all things. This is the one and only real substance. All things come from it. It is an intelligent substance or mental substance. It is God. Where there is no substance, there can be no intelligence, for where there is no substance, there is nothing. Where there is thought, there must be a substance that thinks. Thought cannot be a function, for function is movement, and it is inconceivable that mere movement should think. Thought cannot be vibration, for vibration is movement, and that movement should be intelligent is not conceivable. Movement is nothing more than the movement of substance. If intelligence is demonstrated, it must be in the substance and not in the movement. Thought cannot be the result of movements in the brain. If thought is in the brain, it must be in the substance of the brain and not in the movements that the brain substance makes. But thought is not in the brain substance, for the brain substance, without life, is quite unintelligent and dead. Thought is in the life principle that animates the brain, in the spiritual substance, which is the true person. The brain does not think. The person thinks and expresses their thought through the brain. There is a thinking, spiritual substance. Just as a person's spiritual substance permeates their body and thinks and knows through the body, so the original spiritual substance, God, permeates all of nature and thinks and knows through nature. Nature is as intelligent as a person and knows more than a person. Nature knows all things. The whole mind has been in contact with all things since the beginning and contains all knowledge. A person's experience covers a few things, and these things they know. But God's experience covers everything that has happened since creation, from the decline of a planet or the passage of a comet to the fall of a sparrow. Everything that is and everything that has been is present in the intelligence that is enfolded over us and surrounds us and presses in on us from all sides. All the encyclopedias that people have written are just trivial matters compared to the vast knowledge in the mind in which people live, move, and have their being. The truths that people perceive by inspiration are thoughts held in this mind. If they were not thoughts, people could not perceive them, for they would have no existence, and they could not exist as thoughts unless there were a mind in which they could exist, and a mind can be nothing more than a substance that thinks. A person is thinking substance, a portion of the cosmic substance, but a person is limited, while the cosmic intelligence from which they arose, which Jesus calls the Father, is unlimited. All intelligence, power, and strength come from the Father. Jesus recognized this and stated it very clearly. Repeatedly, he attributed all his wisdom and power to his unity with the Father and to his perception of God's thoughts. My Father and I are one. This was the foundation of his knowledge and power. He showed the people the necessity of becoming spiritually awakened, of hearing his voice, and of becoming like him. He compared the foolish person who is the prey of circumstances to a person dead in a tomb, and pleaded with them to listen and come forth. God is spirit, he said. Be born again, spiritually awakened, and you can see his kingdom. Listen to my voice. See what I am and what I do, and come forth and live. The words that I say are spirit and life. Accept them, and they will make a well of water spring up within you. Then you will have life in yourself. I do what I see the Father doing, he said, meaning that he read the thoughts of God. The Father shows all things to the Son. If any person has the will to do God's will, they will know the truth. My teaching is not my own, but of him who sent me. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. The Spirit will guide you into all truth. We are immersed in the mind, and this mind contains all knowledge and all truth. It seeks to give us this knowledge, for our Father delights in giving good fruit to his children. The prophets and seers and great men and women, past and present, were made great by what they received from God, not by what was taught to them by people. This limitless reservoir of wisdom and power is open to you. You can use it as you will, according to your needs. You can make of yourself what you want to be. You can do what you want to do. You can have what you want. To achieve this, you must learn to become one with the Father, so that you can perceive the truth, so that you can have wisdom and know the right ends to seek and the right means to use to attain those ends, and so that you can secure the power and ability to use the means. As you close this chapter, resolve that you will now lay everything else aside and focus on achieving conscious unity with God. Oh, when I am safe in my simple home, I tread on the pride of Greece and Rome, and when I'm stretched under the pines, where the night star shines so holy, I laugh at the wisdom and pride of man. In the sophist schools and the scholarly band, for what are they all in their high vanity, when the man in the bush with God can meet? Chapter 5. Preparation. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. If you become close to God, you will be able to read his thoughts, and if you do not, you will find the inspired perception of truth impossible. You can never become a great person until you have overcome anxiety, worry, and fear. It is impossible for an anxious, worried, or fearful person to perceive the truth. All things are distorted and thrown out of their proper relation by such mental states, and those who are in them cannot read the thoughts of God. If you are poor, or if you are worried about business or financial matters, it is recommended that you carefully study the first volume of this series, The Science of Getting Rich. This will present you with a solution to your problems of this nature, no matter how great or complicated they may seem. There is not the slightest reason for worry about financial affairs. Every person who wants to do so can rise above want, have everything they need, and become rich. The same source you propose to draw upon for mental unfolding and spiritual power is at your service for the supply of all your material desires. Study this truth until it becomes fixed in your thoughts, and until all anxiety is banished from your mind. Enter the right way that leads to material wealth. Again, if you are anxious or worried about your health, realize that it is possible to attain perfect health so that you can have sufficient strength for everything you want to do and more. That intelligence which is ready to give you wealth and mental and spiritual power will rejoice to give you health as well. Perfect health is yours if you only obey the simple laws of life and live correctly. Conquer health and cast out fear. But it is not enough to rise above financial and physical anxiety and worry. You must also rise above moral evil. Now, probe your inner consciousness for the motives that drive you and make sure they are correct. You must cast out lust and cease to be governed by appetite, and you must begin to govern appetite. You should eat only to satisfy hunger, never for gluttonous delight, and in all things you must make the flesh obey the spirit. You must let go of greed. Have no unworthy motive in your desire to become rich and powerful. It is legitimate and right to desire riches if you want them for the good of the soul, but not if you desire them for the lusts of the flesh. Eliminate pride and vanity. Don't think about trying to rule others or outdo them. This is a vital point. There is no temptation as insidious as the selfish desire to govern others. Nothing is as attractive to the average man or woman as sitting in the highest places at feasts, being respectfully greeted in the marketplace, and being called rabbi, master. Exercising some kind of control over others is the secret motive of every selfish person. The struggle for power over others is the battle of the competitive world, and you must rise above that world and its motives and aspirations and seek only life. Cast out envy. You can have everything you want, and you don't need to envy anyone for what they have. Above all, take care that you have no malice or hostility toward anyone. In doing so, you cut yourself off from the mind whose treasures you seek to acquire. Whoever does not love their brother does not love God. Let go of all petty personal ambition and determine to seek the highest good and to be influenced by no unworthy selfishness. Review everything that has been said and cast from your heart, one by one, these moral temptations. Determine to keep them away. Then resolve that you will not only abandon all evil thoughts, but that you will abandon all acts, habits, and courses of action that do not align with your noblest ideals. This is extremely important. Make this resolution with all the power of your soul, and you are ready for the next step toward greatness, which will be explained in the next chapter. Chapter 6. The Social Point of View. Without faith it is impossible to please God, and without faith it is impossible for you to become great. The distinguishing characteristic of all truly great men and women is an unwavering faith. We see this in Lincoln during the dark days of the war. We see it in Washington at Valley Forge. We see it in Livingstone, the lame missionary, trekking the labyrinths of Africa, his soul afire with the determination to let in the light on the cursed slave trade that his soul abhorred. We see it in Luther and in Francis Willard, in every person who has reached a place on the roll of the world's great. Faith, not a faith in oneself or one's own powers, but faith in one's principles, in a great something that upholds the right and which can be trusted to give us the victory in due time. Without this faith, it is not possible for anyone to rise to true greatness. The person who has no faith in principle will always be a small person. Whether you have this faith or not depends on your point of view. You must learn to see the world as produced by evolution, as something that is evolving and developing, not as a finished work. Millions of years ago, God worked with very simple and rudimentary life forms, but each of them was perfect according to its kind. Higher and more complex organisms, both animal and vegetable, appeared through successive ages. The earth passed stage after stage in its unfolding, each stage perfect in itself, and to be succeeded by a higher stage. What I would have you notice is that the so-called lower organisms are just as perfect within their species as the higher ones, that the world in the Eocene period was perfect for that period. It was perfect, but God's work was not finished. This is true of the world today. Physically, socially, and industrially, it is all good, and it is all perfect. It is not complete anywhere or in any part, but as far as God's handiwork has gone, it is perfect. This must be your point of view, that the world and everything it contains is perfect, though not complete. All is right with the world. That is the great fact. There is nothing wrong with anything. There is nothing wrong with anyone. All the facts of life must be contemplated from this point of view. There is nothing wrong with nature. Nature is a great advancing force, working beneficially for the happiness of all. All things in nature are good. It holds no evil. It is not complete, for creation is still unfinished, but it continues to give a person even more abundantly than it has given them in the past. Nature is a partial expression of God, and God is love. It is perfect, but not concluded. So, too, with human society and government. But there are conglomerates and combinations of capital and strikes and lockouts and so on. All these things are part of the forward movement. They are incidental to the evolutionary process of completing society. When it is complete, there will be harmony. But it cannot be completed without them. J.P. Morgan is as necessary to the coming social order as the strange animals of the reptilian age were to the life of the following period, and just as those animals were perfect according to their kind, so too is Morgan perfect according to his kind. Behold, it is all very good. See government and industry as being perfect now, and as advancing rapidly toward perfection. Then you will understand that there is nothing to fear, no reason for anxiety, nothing to worry about. Never complain about any of these things. They are perfect. This is the best possible world for the stage of development that humanity has reached. This will sound like foolishness to many, perhaps to most people. What, they will say, are not child labor and the exploitation of men and women in dirty, unhealthy factories bad things? Aren't saloons evil? Do you mean we are to accept all this and call it good? Child labor and similar things are no more evil than the ways of living, and the habits and practices of the cave dwellers were evil. Their ways were those of the savage phase of human growth, and for that phase they were perfect. Our industrial practices are those of the savage stage of industrial development, and they too are perfect. Nothing better is possible until we cease to be mental savages in industry and business and become men and women. This can only happen with the ascent of the whole race to a higher point of view, and this can only happen with the ascent of individuals here and there who are ready for the higher point of view. The cure for all this disharmony is not in the bosses or employers, but in the workers themselves. Whenever they attain a higher point of view, whenever they desire to do so, they can establish complete brotherhood and harmony in industry. They have the numbers and the power. They are getting now what they desire. Whenever they desire something more in the way of a higher, purer, more harmonious life, they will receive more. It is true, they want more now, but they only want more of the things that make for the joy of animals, and so industry remains in the savage, brutal, animal stage. When workers begin to rise to the mental plane of life and ask for more of the things that make for the life of the mind and the soul, industry will immediately be elevated above the plane of savagery and brutality. But now it is perfect on its plane. Behold, indeed, it is all very good, so it is true for saloons and dens of vice. If the majority of people desire these things, it is right and necessary that they have them. When the majority desires a world without such discords, they will create such a world. As long as men and women are on the plane of animalistic thought, then the social order will be partly in disorder and will show bestial manifestations. People make society what it is, and as people rise above animal thought, society will rise above the bestial in its manifestations. But a society that thinks in an animalistic way must have saloons and divisions. It is perfect according to its kind, as the world was in the Eocene period, and very good. All this does not prevent you from working for better things. You can work to complete an unfinished society rather than to renew a decaying society. And you can work with a better heart and with a more hopeful spirit. It will make an immense difference to your faith and spirit if you look at civilization as a good thing that is becoming better, or as a bad and demonic thing that is in decay. One point of view gives you an advancing and expanding mind, and the other gives you a decreasing and decaying mind. One point of view will make you grow larger, and the other will inevitably cause you to become smaller. One will allow you to work for eternal things, to do great works in a great way to complete all that is incomplete and disharmonious. And the other will make you a mere patchwork reformer, working almost without hope to save a few lost souls in what you will cultivate to be a lost and doomed world. Thus, you see that this makes a great difference to you, this question of the social point of view. All is right with the world. Nothing can be wrong but my personal attitude, and I will make that right. I will view the facts of nature and all the events, circumstances, and conditions of society, politics, government, and industry from the highest point of view. All of this is perfect, though incomplete. It is all the handiwork of God. Behold, it is all very good. Chapter 7. The Individual Point of View. As important as your point of view about the facts of social life is, it is of less importance than your point of view towards your fellow human beings, towards your acquaintances, friends, relatives, your immediate family, and above all, towards yourself. You must learn to see the world not as a lost and decaying thing, but as something perfect and glorious that is walking toward a very beautiful fullness. And you must learn to see men and women not as lost and cursed things, but as perfect beings advancing to become complete. There are no bad or evil people. A locomotive that is on the tracks pulling a heavy train is perfect according to its kind, and it is good. The power of the steam that propels it is good. Let a broken rail throw the locomotive into a ditch, and it does not become evil or demonic by being so misplaced. It is a perfectly good locomotive, but off the rails. The power of the steam that propels it into the ditch and destroys it is not evil, but a perfectly good energy. Therefore, that which is misplaced or applied incompletely or partially is not evil. There are no bad people. There are perfectly good people who are off the rails, but they don't need condemnation or punishment. They just need to get back on the track. That which is undeveloped or incomplete often seems evil to us because of the way we have trained ourselves to think. The root of a bulb that is to produce a white lily is an unpleasant thing. One might look at it with disgust. But how foolish we would be to judge the bulb by its appearance when we know that the lily is within it. The root is perfect according to its kind. It is a perfect but incomplete lily. And so we must learn to look at every man and woman, no matter how unlovely an outward manifestation. They are perfect in their stage of being, and behold, it is all very good. Once we grasp this fact and come to this point of view, we lose all desire to find fault with people, to judge, criticize, or condemn them. We no longer work as those who are saving lost souls, but as those who are among the angels, working for the realization of a glorious paradise. We are born of the Spirit and see the kingdom of God. We no longer see people as trees walking, but our vision is complete. We have nothing but good words to say. All is good. A great and glorious humanity coming to fullness. And in our association with people, this puts us in an expanding and growing attitude. We see them as great beings, and we begin to deal with them and their affairs in a great way. But if we fall into the other point of view and see a lost and degenerate race, we shrink into a contracted mind, and our relations with people and their affairs will be in a small and contracted way. Remember to hold fast to this point of view. If you do, you cannot fail to begin immediately to deal with your acquaintances and neighbors and your own family as a great personality deals with people. This same point of view must be the one from which you regard yourself. You must always see yourself as a great soul moving forward. Learn to say, "There is in me that of which I am made, which knows no imperfection, weakness, or disease. The world is incomplete, but God in my own consciousness is perfect and complete. Nothing can be wrong except my own personal attitude, and my own personal attitude can only be wrong when I disobey that which is within. I am a perfect manifestation of God up to the point I have reached, and I will continue to advance to be complete. I will trust and not be afraid." When you are able to say this comprehendingly, you will have lost all fear and will be far advanced on the path to developing a great and powerful personality. Chapter 8: The Consecration. Having reached the point of view that puts you in the right relationship with the world and your fellow human beings, the next step is consecration. Consecration, in its true sense, simply means obedience to the soul. You have within you that which always pushes you onto the upward and advancing path. And that something that pushes is the divine principle of power. You must obey it without question. No one will deny the assertion that to be great, greatness must be a manifestation of something internal. Nor can you question that this something must be the greatest and most sublime thing that is within you. It is not the mind, or the intellect, or reason. You cannot be great if you don't turn to a principle beyond your power of reasoning. Reason knows no principle or morality. Your reason is like a lawyer, in that it will argue for both sides. A thief's intellect will plan theft and murder as readily as a saint's intellect will plan a great philanthropy. Intellect helps us see the best means and ways of doing the right thing, but intellect never shows us the right thing. Intellect and reason serve the selfish person for their selfish ends just as readily as they serve the unselfish person for their unselfish ends. Use intellect and reason without regard for principle, and you may become known as a very capable person, but you will never become known as a person whose life shows the power of true greatness. There is much training of the intellect and reason, and very little training in obedience to the soul. This is the only thing that can be wrong with your personal attitude, when it is not an attitude of obedience to the principle of power. By turning to your own center, you can always find the pure idea of what is right for every relationship. To be great and have power, it is only necessary to conform your life to the pure idea, as you find it in the great how. Every compromise on this point is made at the cost of a loss of power. This you must remember. There are many ideas in your mind that you have outgrown, and which, by force of habit, you still allow to dictate the actions of your life. Stop all this. Abandon everything you have outgrown. There are many ignoble customs, social and otherwise, that you still follow, even though you know they tend to make you seem insignificant and to demean you and keep you acting in a small way. Rise above all of this. I am not saying that you should absolutely disregard conventional things, or the commonly accepted standards of right and wrong. You cannot do that, but you can free your soul from most of the petty restrictions that bind most of your fellow human beings. Do not give your time and strength to the support of obsolete institutions, religious or otherwise. Do not be bound to creeds you do not believe in. Be free. You may have formed some mental or physical sensory habits. Abandon them. You still indulge in fears that things will go wrong, or that people will betray you or mistreat you. Get above all of them. You still act selfishly in many ways and on many occasions. Stop doing so. Abandon all this, and in their place, put the best actions you can form a conception of in your mind. If you desire to advance and are not doing so, remember that it can only be because your thought is better than your practice. You must act as well as you think. Let your thoughts be ruled by principle, and then live up to your thoughts. Let your attitude in business, in politics, in neighborhood affairs, and in your own home, be the expression of the best thoughts you can think. Let your manners toward all men and women, great and small, and especially toward your own family circle, be always the most gentle, gracious, and courteous you can picture in your imagination. Remember your point of view. You are a god in the company of gods and must behave accordingly. The steps to complete consecration are few and simple. You cannot be ruled from below if you want to be great. You must rule from above. Therefore, you cannot be governed by physical impulses. You must submit your body to your mind. But your mind, without principles, can lead you to selfishness and immoral forms. You must submit the mind to the soul. And your soul is limited by the bounds of its knowledge. You must submit it to that our oversoul, who does not need to seek knowledge, but before whose eye all things are spread out. This constitutes consecration. Say, I give my body to be governed by my mind. I give my mind to be governed by my soul, and I give my soul to the guidance of God. Make this consecration whole and complete, and you have taken the second great step on the path of greatness and power. Chapter 9. Identification. Having recognized God as the advancing presence in nature, in society, and in your fellow human beings, and having harmonized with all this and having consecrated yourself to that which within you urges you to the greatest and highest, the next step is to become aware of and fully recognize the fact that the principle of power within you is God Himself. This is not a false or untruthful position to assume. It is a fact to be recognized. You are already one with God. You want to become consciously aware of this. There is one substance, the source of all things, and this substance has within itself the power that creates all things. All power is inherent in it. This substance is conscious and thinks. It works with perfect understanding and intelligence. You know this is so because you know that substance exists and that consciousness exists, and that it must be the substance that is conscious. A person is conscious and thinks. A person is substance. They must be substance, otherwise they are nothing and do not exist at all. If a person is substance and thinks and is conscious, then they are conscious substance. It is not conceivable that there should be more than one conscious substance. Thus, a person is the original substance, the source of all life and power incarnated in a physical form. A person cannot be something different from God. Intelligence is one and the same everywhere, and it must be everywhere an attribute of the same substance. There cannot be one kind of intelligence in God and another kind of intelligence in a person. Intelligence can only be in the intelligent substance, and the intelligent substance is God. A person is of one and the same thing as God, and so all the talents, powers, and possibilities that are in God are in a person, not just in a few exceptional people, but in all. All power is given to man, in heaven and on earth. Is it not written, "You are gods"? The principle of power in a person is the person themselves, and the person themselves is God. But while a person is original substance and has within themselves all power and possibilities, their consciousness is limited. They do not know everything there is to know, and therefore are liable to error and mistake. To save themselves from these, they must unite their mind with that which is outside of them, which knows everything. They must become consciously one with God. There is a mind that surrounds you on all sides, closer than breathing, closer than hands and feet, and in this mind is the memory of everything that has ever happened. From the greatest convulsions of nature in prehistoric days to the fall of a sparrow in this present time, and everything that exists now as well. Held within this mind is the great purpose that is behind all nature, and therefore it knows what is going to happen. A person is surrounded by a mind that knows everything there is to know, past, present, and future. Everything a person has said or done or written is present there. A person is of the identical same material as this mind. They arose from it, and they can identify themselves with it in such a way that they can know what the mind knows. My Father is greater than I, Jesus said. I come from Him. I and my Father are one. He shows the Son all things. The Spirit will guide you into all truth. Your identification with the infinite must be achieved by conscious recognition on your part, by recognizing it as a fact that there is only God and that all intelligence is in the one substance. You must then affirm something that comes after this. There is only one, and that one is everywhere. I give myself to conscious unity with the highest. Not I, but the Father. I will be one with the Supreme and lead the divine life. I am one with the infinite consciousness. There is only one mind, and I am that mind. I who speak to you am He. If you have been thorough in the work as described in the previous chapters, if you have reached the true point of view, and if your consecration is complete, you will not find conscious identification difficult. And once it is achieved, the power you seek is yours, for you have made yourself one with all the power there is. Chapter 10. The Idealization. You are a center of thought in the original substance, and the thoughts of the original substance have creative power. Whatever is formed in your thought and held as a thought form must come into existence as a visible and so-called material form. A thought form held in the substance of thought is a reality. It is a real thing, whether it has become visible to mortal eyes or not. This is a fact you must impress upon your understanding, that a thought held in the substance of thought is a real thing, a form, and it has real existence, even though it is not visible to you. You inwardly take the form in which you think of yourself, and you surround yourself with the invisible forms of those things with which you associate yourself in your thoughts. If you desire a thing, picture it clearly and hold the image firmly in your mind until it becomes a definite thought form. And if your practices are not such as to separate you from God, the thing you desire will come to you in material form. It must do so in obedience to the law by which the universe was created. Do not make of yourself any thought form in connection with sickness or disease, but form a conception of health. Make of yourself a thought form that is strong, whole, and perfectly well. Impress that thought form upon the creative intelligence, and if your practices do not violate the laws by which the physical body is constructed, your thought form will become manifest in your flesh. This too is certain. It comes through obedience to the law. Make of yourself a thought form as you desire to be, and place your ideal as close to perfection as your imagination is capable of forming the conception. Let me illustrate. If a young law student desires to become great, let them picture themselves, while attending to the points of view, consecration and identification as previously directed, as a great lawyer, pleading their case with unrivaled eloquence and power before the judge and jury, as having an unlimited command of truth, knowledge, and wisdom. Let them picture themselves as the great lawyer in every possible situation and circumstance. While they are still only the student in every circumstance, let them never forget or fail to be the great lawyer in their thought form of themselves. As the thought form becomes more definite and habitual in their mind, the creative energies, both within and without, are set in motion. They begin to manifest the form from within, and all the essential elements outside which come into play begin to be directed toward them. They make themselves in the image, and God works with them. Nothing can stop them from becoming what they want themselves to be. In the same general way, the music student pictures themselves as performing perfect harmonies and as delighting vast audiences. The actor forms the highest conception they are capable of having in relation to their art, and applies this conception to themselves. The farmer and the mechanic do the very same thing. Fix on your ideal of what you want to make of yourself. Consider it well and be sure that you make the right choice. That is, the one that will be the most satisfying to you in a general way. Do not pay too much attention to the advice or suggestions of those around you. Do not believe that anyone can know, better than you do, what is right for you. Listen to what others have to say, but always form your own conclusions. Do not let other people decide what you should be. Be what you feel you want to be. Do not be deceived by a false notion of obligation or duty. You do not owe others any possible responsibility or obligation that would prevent you from making the most of yourself. Be true to yourself, and you will not be false to any person. When you have completely decided what you want to be, form the highest conception of that thing you are capable of imagining, and make that conception a thought form. Hold that thought form as a fact, as the real truth about yourself, and believe in it. Close your ears to all adverse suggestions. It doesn't matter if people call you a fool and a dreamer. Keep on dreaming. Remember that Bonaparte, the half-starved lieutenant, always saw himself as the general of armies and the master of France, and he became the realization of what he regarded himself to be. So will you as well. Observe carefully everything that has been said in the previous chapters, and act as indicated in the following chapters, and you will become what you want to be. Chapter 11. Realization. If you were to stop at the end of the last chapter, you would never become great. You would, in fact, be a mere dreamer, a builder of sandcastles. Many stop there. They do not understand the necessity of present action in the realization of the vision and the manifestation of the thought form. Two things are necessary. First, the realization of the thought form, and second, the actual appropriation for yourself of everything that comes into and around the thought form. We have discussed the first, now we will proceed to give instructions for the second. Once you have made your thought form, you are already inwardly what you want to be. Next, you must become outwardly what you want to be. You are already great inside, but you are not yet doing the great things. You cannot, at this instant, begin to do the great things. You cannot be, in the eyes of the world, the great actor or lawyer or musician or personality that you yourself know you are. No one will entrust you with great things just yet, for you have not yet made yourself known. But you can always begin to do small things in a great way. Here lies the whole secret. You can begin to be great today in your own home, in your store or office, on the street, anywhere. You can begin to become known as great, and you can do this by doing everything you do in a great way. You must put the whole power of your great soul into every act, however small and trivial, and thus reveal to your family, your friends, and neighbors what you really are. Do not boast or brag about yourself. Do not go and tell people that you are a great person. Simply live in a great way. No one will believe you if you tell them you are a great person, but no one can doubt your greatness if you show it in your actions. In your home circle, be so just, so generous, so courteous and kind, that your family, your wife, husband, children, brothers and sisters know that you are a great and noble soul. In all your dealings with people, be great, just, generous, courteous, and kind. The great are never otherwise. This is your attitude. Next, and most importantly, you must have absolute faith in your own perceptions of the truth. Never act in a hurry or with precipitation. Be deliberate in everything. Wait until you feel that you know the true way. And when you feel that you know the true way, be guided by your own faith, even if the whole world disagrees with you. If you don't believe what God tells you in small things, You will never build on his wisdom and knowledge in greater things. When you feel deeply that a certain act is the right act, do it and have perfect faith that the consequences will be good. When you are deeply convinced that a certain thing is true, no matter what the appearances to the contrary, accept that thing as true and act accordingly. The only way to develop a perception of the truth in great things is to trust absolutely in your present perception of the truth in small things. Remember that you are seeking to develop that very power or faculty, the perception of the truth. You are learning to read the thoughts of God. Nothing is great and nothing is small in the eyes of omnipotence. He holds the sun in its place, but also observes the fall of a sparrow and counts the hairs on your head. God is just as interested in the small affairs of everyday life as in the affairs of nations. You can perceive the truth about family and neighborhood matters just as well as about matters of state. And the way to begin is to have perfect faith in the truth in these small matters, as it is revealed to you on a day-to-day basis. When you feel deeply moved to take a course that seems contrary to all reason and the judgment of the world, take that course. Listen to the suggestions and advice of others. But always do what you feel deeply within you is the true thing to do. Always trust with absolute faith in your own perception of the truth. But be sure that you are listening to God, that you are not acting in haste, fear, or anxiety. Trust your perception of the truth in all the facts and circumstances of life. If you feel deeply that a certain person will be in a certain place on a certain day, go there with perfect faith to meet them. They will be there, however unlikely it may seem. If you are sure that certain people are making certain connections or doing certain things, act in the faith that they are doing those things. If you feel certain of the truth of any circumstance or event, near or far, past, present, or future, trust your perception. You may make occasional mistakes at first because of your imperfect understanding of the inner self, but you will soon be guided almost invariably in the right way. Soon your family and friends will begin to trust more and more in your judgment and to be guided by you. Soon, your neighbors and townsmen will come to you for counsel and recommendations. Soon, you will be recognized as one who is great in small things, and you will be called more and more to take charge of greater things. All that is necessary is to be guided absolutely in all things by your inner light, by your perception of the truth. Obey your soul. Have perfect faith in yourself. Never think of yourself with doubt or disbelief, or as one who makes mistakes. If I judge, my judgment is just, for I do not seek the honor of men, but only of the Father. Chapter 12. Haste and Habit. Without a doubt, you have many problems, domestic, social, physical, and financial, that seem to be pressing for an immediate solution. You have debts that must be paid, or other obligations that must be met. You are unhappy or misplaced, and you feel that something must be done at once. Do not be in a hurry and react with superficial impulses. You can trust God for the solution of all your personal problems. There is no haste. There is only God, and all is right with the world. There is an invincible power in you, and the same power is in the things you want. It is bringing them to you and bringing you to them. This is a thought that you must comprehend and hold continuously, that the same intelligence that is in you is in the things you desire. They are propelled toward you as strongly and as decisively as your desire propels you toward them. The tendency, therefore, of a steady thought must be to bring the things you desire to you and to group them around you. Provided you keep your thought and your faith right, all must go well. Nothing can be wrong but your own personal attitude, and that will not be wrong if you trust and are not afraid. Haste is a manifestation of fear. The one who fears has no time to spare. If you act with perfect faith in your own perceptions of the truth, you will never be too late or too early, and nothing will go wrong. If things seem to be going wrong, do not be disturbed in your mind. It is only an appearance. Nothing can go wrong in this world but yourself, and you can only go wrong by getting into the wrong mental attitude. Whenever you find yourself agitated, worried, or in the mental attitude of haste, sit down and think about it. Play some kind of game, or take a vacation. Take a trip and everything will be right when you return. So certainly, when you find yourself in the mental attitude of haste, you may know for sure that you are out of the mental attitude of greatness. Haste and fear will instantly cut off your connection with the universal mind. You will have no power, no wisdom, and no information until you are calm. And falling into the attitude of haste will retard the action of the principle of power within you. Fear turns strength into weakness. Remember that balance and power are inseparably associated. The calm and balanced mind is the strong and great mind. The hurried and agitated mind is the weak mind. Whenever you fall into the state of mental haste, you may know that you have lost the right point of view. You are beginning to look upon the world, or some part of it, as if it were wrong. On such occasions, read chapter 6 of this book, consider the fact that this work is perfect now, with everything it contains. Nothing is going wrong. Nothing can be wrong. Be balanced, be calm, be cheerful, have faith in God. Next, as to habit, it is probable that your greatest difficulty will be to overcome your old habitual ways of thinking and to form new habits. The world is governed by habit. Kings, tyrants, lords, and plutocrats hold their positions only because the people have become accustomed to habitually accepting them. Things are as they are only because people have formed the habit of accepting them as they are. When the people change their habitual thought about governmental, social, and industrial institutions, they will change the institutions. Habit governs all of us. You have formed, perhaps, the habit of thinking of yourself as a common person, as a person of limited capacity, or as being more or less a failure. Whatsoever you habitually think yourself to be, you are. You must form now a greater and better habit. You must form a conception of yourself as a being of limitless power and habitually think that you are that being. It is habitual thought, not sporadic thought, that decides your destiny. It will do you no good to sit apart for a few moments several times a day to affirm that you are great, if throughout the rest of the day, while you are about your regular occupation, you think of yourself as not being great. No amount of prayer or affirmation will make you great if you still habitually regard yourself as small. The use of prayer and affirmation serves to change your habit of thinking. Any act, mental or physical, often repeated, becomes a habit. The purpose of mental exercises is to repeat certain thoughts over and over again until the thinking of those thoughts becomes constant and habitual. The thoughts we continually repeat become convictions. What you must do is repeat the new thought of yourself until it is the only way you can think of yourself. Habitual thought, not environment or circumstances, has made you what you are. Every person has some central idea or thought form of themselves, and by this idea they classify and organize all their external facts and relations. You are classifying your facts either according to the idea that you are a great and strong personality or according to the idea that you are limited, common, or weak. If the latter is the case, you must change your central idea. Obtain a new mental image of yourself. Don't try to become great by repeating simple strings of words or superficial formulas, but repeat over and over again the thought of your own power and ability until you classify the external facts and decide your place everywhere by this idea. In another chapter, an illustrative mental exercise and other instructions on this point will be presented. Chapter 13. Thought. Greatness is only achieved through the constant thinking of great thoughts. No one can become great in external personality until they are great internally. And no one can be great internally until they think. No amount of education, reading, or study can make you great without thinking. But thinking can make you great with very little study. There are many people who are trying to make something of themselves by reading books without thinking. All this will fail. You are not mentally developed by what you read, but by what you think about what you read. Thinking is the most difficult and most exhausting of all work, and for this reason, many people abstain from thinking. God has so formed us that we are continually impelled to think. We must think or engage in some activity to escape from thinking. The continuous, headlong pursuit of pleasure, in which most people spend all their free time, is only an effort to escape from thinking. If they are alone, or if they have nothing entertaining to call their attention, like a novel to read or a show to see, they must think. And to escape from thinking, they resort to novels, shows, and all the endless devices of the providers of amusement. Most people spend the greater part of their leisure time fleeing from thinking, and this is why they are where they are. We never advance until we begin to think. Read less and think more. Read about great things and think about great questions and problems. We currently have few truly great figures in the political life of our country. Our politicians are a petty group. We no longer have Lincoln, Webster, Clay, Calhoun, or Jackson. Why? Because our current statesmen deal only with sordid and petty questions. Questions of dollars and cents, of party convenience and success, of material prosperity without regard for ethical right. Thinking of this kind does not call forth great souls. The statesmen of Lincoln's time and earlier times dealt with questions of eternal truth, of human rights and justice. People thought about great themes. They thought great thoughts, and they became great people. Thinking, and not mere knowledge or information, makes personality. To think is to grow. You cannot think without growing. Every thought begets another thought. Write down one idea, and others will follow until you have written a page. You cannot plunge into your own mind. It has no bottom or limits. Your first thoughts may be crude, but as you continue thinking, you will use more and more of yourself. You will quicken new brain cells into activity and develop new faculties. Heredity, environment, circumstances, all things must give way before you if you practice sustained and continuous thought. But on the other hand, if you fail to think for yourself and only use the thoughts of others, you will never know what you are capable of, and you will end up being incapable of anything. There can be no true greatness without original thought. Everything a person does externally is the expression and conclusion of their inner thought. No action is possible without thought, and no great action is possible until a great thought has preceded it. Action is the second form of thought, and personality is the materialization of thought. Environment is the result of thought. Things group or organize themselves around you according to your thought. There is, as Emerson says, some central idea or conception of yourself, by which all the facts of your life are organized and classified. Change this central idea, and you change the arrangement or classification of all the facts and circumstances of your life. You are what you are because you think as you do. You are where you are because you think as you think. You see then the immense importance of thinking about the great essential meaning set forth in the previous chapters. You must not accept them in any superficial way. You must think about them until they become part of your central idea. Go back to the question of the point of view and consider, in all its directions, the tremendous thought that you live in a perfect world among perfect people, and that nothing can be wrong with you but your own personal attitude. Think about all this until you fully realize all that it means to you. Consider that this is God's world, and that it is the best of all possible worlds. that he has brought it thus far to completion by the processes of organic, social, and industrial evolution, and that it is moving toward greater completeness and harmony. Consider that there is a great, perfect, and intelligent principle of life and power, causing all the changing phenomena of the cosmos. Think about all this until you see that it is true, and until you understand how you must live and act as a citizen of such a perfect whole. Next, think of the wonderful truth that this great intelligence is in you. It is your own intelligence. It is an inner light that impels you toward the right and best thing, the greatest act, and the greatest happiness. It is a principle of power in you, giving you all the ability and genius there is in you. It will guide you unfailingly to the best if you submit to it and walk in the light. Consider what your consecration of yourself means when you say, "I will obey my soul." This is a phrase of tremendous significance. It should revolutionize the attitude and behavior of an ordinary person. Then think of your identification with this great Supreme, that all His knowledge is yours, and all His wisdom is yours, simply for the asking. You are a God if you think like a God. If you think like a God, you cannot fail to act like a God. Divine thoughts will surely externalize themselves in a divine life. Thoughts of power will end in a life of power. Great thoughts will manifest in a great personality. Think well on all this, and then you will be ready to act. Chapter 14. Action at Home. Don't just think you're going to become great. Think that you are great now. Don't think that you're going to start acting in a great way at some future time. Start now. Don't think that you'll act in a great way when you reach a different environment. Act in a great way where you are now. Don't think you will start being great when you begin to deal with great things. Start dealing in a great way with small things. Don't think you will start being great when you are among more intelligent people, or among people who understand you better. Start now to deal in a great way with the people around you. If you are not in an environment where there is room for your best powers and talents, you may establish yourself in due time. But in the meantime, you can be great where you are. Lincoln was just as great when he was a country lawyer as when he was president. As a country lawyer, he did common things in a great way, and this made him president. If he had waited until he got to Washington to start being great, he would have remained unknown. You don't become great by the location you are in or by the things you may get involved with. You don't become great by what you receive from others, and you can never manifest greatness as long as you depend on others. You will only manifest greatness when you begin to stand alone. Put away all thoughts of dependency on third parties, whether things, books, or people. As Emerson said, Shakespeare will never be made by the study of Shakespeare. Shakespeare will be made by the thinking of Shakespeare. It doesn't matter how the people around you, including those in your own home, may treat you. That has nothing to do with your greatness. That is, it cannot prevent you from being great. People may neglect you and be ungrateful and unkind in their attitude toward you. Does that prevent you from being great in your manners and attitude toward them? Your Father, Jesus said, is kind to the ungrateful and the evil. Would God be great if He were to go off and sulk because people are ungrateful and do not appreciate Him? Treat the ungrateful and the evil in a great and perfectly kind way, just as God does. Do not talk about your greatness. You are not really, in essential nature, greater than those around you. You may have entered a way of living and thinking that they have not yet found, but they are perfect on their own plane of thought and action. You have no right to any special honor or consideration for your greatness. You are a god, but you are among gods. You will fall into a pompous attitude if you see the faults and failures of other people and compare them with your own virtues and successes. And if you fall into that pompous attitude of mind, you will cease to be great and will become small. Think of yourself as a perfect being among perfect beings, and meet every person as an equal, not as a superior or an inferior. Do not give yourself airs. Great people never do. Do not ask for honors and do not seek recognition. Honors and recognition will come fast enough if you are entitled to them. Start at home. It is a great person who will always be ready, secure, calm, and perfectly gentle and thoughtful at home. If your manners and attitudes in your own family are always the best you can think of, you will soon become the one on whom all others will lean. You will be a fortress and a support in times of trouble. You will be loved and appreciated. At the same time, do not make the mistake of throwing away yourself in the service of others. The great person respects themselves. They serve and help, but are never subservient. You harm a person when you do everything for them. The selfish and demanding are much better off if their demands are denied. The ideal world is not a world where there are many people being waited on by other people. It is a world where everyone serves themselves. Meet all demands, selfish or otherwise, with perfect gentleness and consideration. But do not let yourself become a slave to the whims, wishes, demands, or subservient aspirations of any member of your family. To do so is not great and harms the other party. Do not fret over the faults or mistakes of any member of your family and feel that you must interfere. Do not be disturbed if others seem to be going wrong, and feel that you must step in and correct them. Remember that every person is perfect on their own plane. You cannot improve God's work. Do not meddle with the personal habits and practices of others, even though they are your nearest and dearest. These things are not your concern. Nothing can be wrong but your own personal attitude. Make that right, and you will know that everything else is right. You are a truly great soul when you can live with those who do things you do not do, and yet refrain from any criticism or interference. Do the things that are right for you and believe that every member of your family is doing the things that are right for them. Nothing is wrong with anyone or anything. Behold, it is all very good. Do not be enslaved by anyone else, but take equal care not to enslave anyone else to your own notions of what is right. Think, and think deeply and continuously. Be perfect in your kindness and consideration. Let your attitude be that of a God among gods, and not that of a God among lesser beings. This is the way to be great in your own home. Chapter 15. Action Outside of Home. The rules that apply to your action at home should apply to your action everywhere. Never forget for an instant that this is a perfect world, and that you are a God among gods. You are as great as the greatest, but all are your equals. Trust absolutely in your perception of the truth. Trust the inner light more than reason, but be sure that your perception comes from the inner light. Act with balance and calm. Be still and attentive to God. Your identification of yourself with the Almighty will give you all the knowledge necessary for guidance in any contingency that may arise in your own life or in the lives of others. It is only necessary that you be extremely calm and trust the eternal wisdom that is within you. If you act with balance and faith, your judgment will always be correct, and you will always know exactly what to do. Do not hurry or worry. Remember Lincoln in the dark days of the war. James Freeman Clarke recounts that, after the Battle of Fredericksburg, only Lincoln provided a fountain of faith and hope for the nation. Hundreds of important people from all parts of the country entered his room sorrowfully and left cheerful and hopeful. They had stood face to face with the Most High, and had seen God in this pale, awkward, and patient man, though they did not know it. Have perfect faith in yourself and in your own ability to deal with any combination of circumstances that may arise. Do not be disturbed if you are alone. If you need friends, they will be brought to you in due time. Do not be disturbed if you find that you are ignorant. The information you need will be provided when the time comes to have it. That which is in you impelling you forward is also in the things and people you need, impelling them to you. If there is a particular person you need to know, they will be presented to you. If there is a particular book you need to read, it will be placed in your hands at the right time. All the knowledge you need is coming to you from both external and internal sources. Your information and your talents will always be equal to the demands of the occasion. Remember that Jesus told his disciples not to worry about what they should say when they were brought before judges. He knew that the power in them would be sufficient for the needs of the hour. As soon as you awaken and begin to use your faculties in a great way, you will apply power to the development of your brain. New cells will be created and dormant cells will be activated, and your brain will be qualified as a perfect instrument for your mind. Don't try to do great things until you are ready to do them in a great way. If you commit to dealing with great matters in a small way, that is, from a low point of view, or with incomplete consecration and wavering faith and courage, you will fail. Do not be in a hurry to get to the great things. Doing great things will not make you great, but becoming great will surely lead you to do great things. Begin to be great where you are and in the things you do every day. Do not be in a hurry to be discovered or recognized as a great personality. Do not be disappointed if people do not nominate you for an office within a month after you begin to practice what you have read in this book. Great people never seek recognition or applause. They are not great because they want to be paid for being so. Greatness is a sufficient reward in itself. The joy of being somebody and of knowing that you are advancing is the greatest of all joys possible for a person. If you begin in your own family, as described in the previous chapter, and then assume the same mental attitude with your neighbors, friends, and those you meet in business, you will soon find that people are beginning to depend on you. Your advice will be sought, and an ever-increasing number of people will look to you for strength and inspiration, and will trust in your judgment. Here, as at home, you must avoid interfering in other people's affairs. Help all who come to you, but do not officiously strive to correct other people. Do not meddle in their own affairs. It is not part of your mission in life to correct people's morals, habits, or practices. Lead a great life, doing all things with a great spirit and in a great way. Give to whoever asks you as freely as you have received, but do not force your help or your opinions on any person. If your neighbor wishes to smoke or drink, that is their business. It is not your business until they consult you about it. If you lead a great life and do no preaching, you will save 1,000 times more souls than one who leads a small life and preaches continuously. If you have the right point of view of the world, others will discover it and be impressed by it through your daily conversation and practice. Do not try to convert others to your point of view, except by holding it and living in accordance with it. If your consecration is perfect, you do not need to tell anyone. It will quickly become evident to everyone that you are guided by a higher principle than the average man or woman. If your identification with God is complete, you will not need to explain the fact to others. It will become self-evident. To become known as a great personality, you have nothing to do but live. Do not imagine that you have to go about like Don Quixote, tilting at windmills and tearing things down in general, in order to demonstrate that you are somebody. Do not go hunting for great things to do. Live a great life where you are, and in the daily work you have to do, and greater work will surely find you. Great things will come to you, asking to be done. Be so impressed with the worth of a person that you treat even a beggar or a tramp with the most distinguished consideration. Everything is God. Every man and every woman is perfect. Let your manners be those of a god addressing other gods. Do not save all your consideration for the poor. The millionaire is just as good as the tramp. This is a perfectly good world, and there's not one person or thing in it that is not exactly right. Be sure you have this in mind when dealing with things and people. Form your mental vision of yourself with care. Make the thought form of yourself as you wish to be, and hold this with the faith that it is being realized and with the purpose of realizing it completely. Do every common act as a god must do it. Speak every word as a god must speak. Recognize men and women both of low and high station as a god recognizes other divine beings. Begin in this way and continue in this way, and your unfolding into ability and power will be great and rapid. Chapter 16. Some additional explanations. We return here to the question of the point of view, for besides being of vital importance, it is what will probably give the student the most trouble. We have been trained, in part by misguided religious teachers, to look upon the world as if it were a shipwrecked vessel, driven by a storm upon a rocky coast. Total destruction is inevitable in the end, and the most that can be done is to save, perhaps, a few members of the crew. This view teaches us to consider the world as essentially bad and getting worse, and to believe that existing discords and disharmony must continue and intensify to the end. This robs us of hope for society, for government, and for humanity, and gives us a descending outlook and a contracting mind. All this is wrong. The world is not ruined. It is like a magnificent steamship with the engines in place and the machinery in perfect order. The bunkers are full of coal and the ship is amply provisioned for the cruise. Nothing good is lacking. Every provision that omniscience could conceive has been made for the safety, comfort, and happiness of the crew. The steamship is on the high seas, sailing this way and that because no one has yet learned the right course to steer. We are learning how to steer, and in due time we will arrive in great style at the port of perfect harmony. The world is good, and it is getting better. The existing discords and disharmony are no more than the incidental lurching of the ship from our own imperfect steering. All of them will be removed in due time. This view gives us an ascending outlook and an expanding mind. It allows us to think in a great way about society and about ourselves, and to do things in a great way. Furthermore, we see that nothing can be wrong with such a world or with any part of it, including our own affairs. If everything is moving toward completion, then it is not going wrong. And since our own personal affairs are part of the whole, they are not going wrong. You and everything you are concerned with are moving toward completeness. Nothing can stop this forward movement but yourself, and you can only stop it by assuming a mental attitude that conflicts with the mind of God. You have nothing to keep right but yourself. If you keep yourself right, nothing can go wrong with you, and you can have nothing to fear. No business or other disaster can occur if your personal attitude is right, for you are a part of that which is increasing and advancing, and you must increase and advance with it. Moreover, your thought form will be shaped mainly according to your point of view of the universe. If you see the world as a lost and ruined thing, you will see yourself as a part of it, and as a participant in its sins and weaknesses. If your view of the world as a whole is hopeless, your view of yourself cannot be hopeful. If you see the world as a thing declining toward its end, you cannot see yourself as an advancement. Unless you think well of all of God's works, you cannot really think well of yourself. And unless you think well of yourself, you can never become great. I repeat that your place in life, including your material environment, is determined by the thought form you habitually hold of yourself. When you make a thought form of yourself, you cannot help but form in your mind a corresponding environment. If you see yourself as an incapable, inefficient person, you see yourself with a poor or cheap environment. Unless you think well of yourself, you will be sure to picture yourself in a more or less poor environment. These thoughts, habitually held, become invisible forms in the mind around you, and they are with you continuously. In due time, by the regular action of the eternal creative energy, the invisible thought forms are produced into material things. and you are surrounded by your own thoughts transformed into material things. See nature as a great living and advancing presence, and see human society in exactly the same way. It is all one, coming from a single source, and it is all good. You yourself are made of the same things as God. All the constituents of God are parts of you. Every power that God has is a constituent of humanity. You can move forward as you see God doing. You have within you the source of all power. Chapter 17. More about thought. Here is room for some additional thought. You will never become great until your own thoughts make you great, and for this reason, it is of first importance that you think. You will never do great things in the external world until you think great things in the internal world, and you will never think great things until you think about the truth, about the truths. To think great things, you must be absolutely sincere. And to be sincere, you must know that your intentions are right. Insincere or false thinking is never great, no matter how logical and brilliant it may be. The first and most important step is to seek the truth about human relations, to know what you should be to other people, and what they should be to you. This leads you back to the search for a correct point of view. You must study organic and social evolution. Read Darwin and Walter Thomas Mills, and as you read, think. Think about everything until you see the world of things and people in the right way. Think about what God is doing until you can see what He is doing. Your next step is to think of yourself in the correct personal attitude. Your point of view tells you what the right attitude is, and obedience to the soul puts you in it. Only by making a complete consecration of yourself to the highest that is within you can you come to a sincere thought. As long as you know that you are selfish in your objectives, or dishonest or corrupt in any way in your intentions or practices, your thought will be false and your thoughts will have no power. Think about the way you are doing things, about all your intentions, purposes, and practices, until you know that they are right. The fact of your own complete oneness with God is something that no person can comprehend without deep and sustained thought. Anyone can accept the proposition in a superficial way, but to feel and perceive a vital understanding of it is another matter. It is easy to think of going outside of yourself to find God, but it is not so easy to think of going inside of yourself to find God. But God is there, and in the Holy of Holies of your own soul, you can find Him face to face. It is a tremendous thing, this fact that everything you need is already within you, that you do not have to consider how to get the power to do what you want to do, or to make yourself what you want to be. You only have to concern yourself with how to use the power that you have in the right way. And there is nothing to do but to begin. Use your perception of the truth. You can see some truth today. Live fully up to it, and you will see more truth tomorrow. To get rid of the old false ideas, you will have to think a great deal about the worth of a human, the greatness and value of a human soul. You must stop looking at human mistakes and look at the successes. Stop seeing the faults and see the virtues. You can no longer look upon men and women as lost and ruined beings who are going down to hell. You must come to regard them as resplendent souls who are rising to heaven. It will take some exercise of willpower to do this, but this is the legitimate use of the will, to decide what you are going to think about and how you are going to think. The function of the will is to direct thought. Think about the good side of people, about the beautiful and pleasant part, and exercise your will in refusing to think about anything else in relation to them. I know of no one who has achieved as much on this point as Eugene V. Debs, twice the socialist candidate for President of the United States. Mr. Debs reveres humanity. No appeal for help is made to him in vain. No one receives an unkind or censorious word from him. You cannot enter his presence without becoming sensible of his deep, kindly personal interest in you. Every person, be he a millionaire, a grimy laborer, or a tired woman, receives the radiant warmth of a fraternal affection that is sincere and true. No stray child speaks to him on the street without receiving instant and tender recognition. Debs loves people. This made him the leading figure of a great movement, the beloved hero of 1,000,000 hearts, and will give him an immortal name. It is a great thing to love people like this, and it is only accomplished through thought. Nothing can make you great but thought. We can divide thinkers into those who think for themselves and those who think through others. The latter are the rule and the former the exception. The former are original thinkers in a double sense, and selfish in the noblest sense of the word. Schopenhauer. The key to every man is his thought. Tough and defiant as he seems, he has a rudder which he obeys, which is the idea in which all his facts are qualified. He can only be turned by showing him a new idea which will master his. Emerson. All truly wise thoughts have been thought thousands of times, but to make them truly ours, we must honestly think them over again until they take root in our personal expression. Goethe. Everything a person is outwardly is only the expression and the fullness of their inner thought. To work effectively, one must think clearly. To act nobly, one must think nobly. Channing. Great people are those who see that spirituality is stronger than any material force. The thoughts rule the world. Emerson. Some people study all their lives, and in their death they have learned everything, except how to think. Domergue. It is habitual thought that dominates our lives. It affects us even more than our intimate social relationships. Our confidential friends do not have as much to do with shaping our lives as the thoughts we harbor. J. W. Teal. When God releases a great thinker on this planet, then all things are at risk. There is no piece of science but its flank can be turned tomorrow, nor any literary reputation or so-called eternal names of fame that cannot be refuted and disproven. Emerson. Think, think, think! Chapter 18, Jesus' Idea of Greatness. In the 23rd chapter of Matthew, Jesus makes a very clear distinction between true and false greatness. He also points out the one great danger for all who wish to become great, the most insidious of temptations that everyone must ceaselessly avoid and fight if they truly desire to ascend in the world. Speaking to the crowd and to his disciples, he asks them not to adopt the principle of the Pharisees. He points out that while the Pharisees are upright and righteous men, honorable judges, true legislators, and integral in their relations with people, they love the highest seats at feasts and greetings in the marketplace, and to be called Rabbi, Rabbi. And in contrast to this principle, he says, "Whoever is great among you, let him serve." The common idea of a great person, instead of one who serves, is of one who manages to be served. They place themselves in a position to command people, to exercise power over them, making them obey their will. The exercise of dominion over other people, for most people, is a great thing. Nothing seems to be more pleasurable to a selfish soul than this. You will always find every selfish and undeveloped person trying to dominate others, to exercise control over other people. As soon as uncivilized people were placed on earth, they began to enslave one another. For centuries, the struggle in war, diplomacy, politics, and government has aimed at securing control over other people. Kings and princes have drenched the soil in blood and tears in an effort to extend their domains and their power to rule over more people. The struggle in the business world today is the same as on the battlefields of Europe a century ago, with regard to the governing principle, Robert G. Ingersoll. could not understand why people like Rockefeller and Carnegie seek more money and become slaves to the commercial, struggle when they already have more than they can use. He thought this was a kind of madness and illustrated it as follows. Suppose a man had 50,000 pairs of pants, 75,000 vests, 100,000 coats, and 150,000 ties. What would you think of him if he got up in the morning before light and worked until after dark every day, rain or shine, in all kinds of weather, just to get another tie? But it is not a good analogy. The possession of ties gives a person no power over other people, while the possession of dollars does. Rockefeller, Carnegie, and their kind are not after dollars, but after power. It is the principle of the Pharisee. It is the struggle for the high place. It develops capable people, shrewd people, ingenious people, but not great people. I want you to contrast these two ideas of greatness in your minds. Whoever is great among you, let him serve. Let me stand before the average American public and ask for the name of the greatest American, and most will think of Abraham Lincoln. Is this not because in Lincoln, above all other people who have served us in public life, we recognize the spirit of service? It is not subservience, but service. Lincoln was a great person because he knew how to be a great servant. Napoleon, capable, cold, selfish, seeking the highest places, was a brilliant person. Lincoln was great. Napoleon was not. The very moment you begin to advance and are recognized as someone who is doing things in a great way, you will find yourself in danger. The temptation to condescend, to advise, or to take it upon yourself to manage other people's affairs is sometimes almost irresistible. Avoid, however, the opposite danger of falling into servility, or of throwing yourself away completely in the service of others. To do this has been the ideal of many people. The completely sacrificed life has been considered a Christ-like life, because I think it is a completely wrong conception of Jesus' character and teachings. I have explained this mistaken conception in a small book that I hope you can all one day read, A New Christ. Thousands of people imitating Jesus as they imagine have deprecated themselves and given up everything else to do good, practicing an altruism that is actually as morbid and as far from being great as the most extreme selfishness. The noblest instincts that respond to the cry of difficulty or anguish are by no means the whole of you. They are not necessarily the best part of you. There are other things you must do besides helping the unfortunate, although it is true that a great part of the life and activities of every great person must be given to helping other people. As you begin to advance, they will come to you. Do not turn them away. But do not make the fatal mistake of supposing that the life of complete self-abnegation is the way to greatness. To make another point here, I refer to the fact that Swedenborg's classification of fundamental motives is exactly the same as Jesus's. He divides all people into two groups, those who live in pure love and those who live in what he calls the love of ruling for the sake of self. You see that this is exactly the same as the Pharisees' craving for social position and power. Swedenborg saw this selfish love for power as the cause of all sin. It was the one evil desire of the human heart from which all other evil desires arose. Against this he places pure love. He does not say love of God or love of people, but simply love. In the beginning, all religious people make more of the love and service of God than of the love and service of people. But it is a fact that love for God is not enough to save a person from the lust for power, for some of the most ardent lovers of the deity have been the worst tyrants. The lovers of God are often tyrants, and the lovers of people are often meddlesome and foolish. Chapter 19. A View of Evolution. But how can we avoid throwing ourselves into altruistic work if we are surrounded by poverty, ignorance, suffering, and every appearance of misery like many people are? Those who live where the weakened hand of misery is thrust upon them from all sides, appealing for help, must have a difficult time refraining from giving continuously. Then again, there are social irregularities, injustices done to the weak, which set generous souls on fire with an almost irresistible desire to set things right. In all this, we must return to the point of view. We must remember that this is not a bad world, but a good world in the process of becoming. Beyond all doubt, there was a time when there was no life on this earth. The testimony of geology to the fact that the globe was once a ball of burning gas and molten rock, clothed in boiling vapors, is indisputable, and we do not know how life could have existed under such conditions. It seems impossible. Geology tells us that later, in a formed crust, the globe cooled and hardened. The vapors condensed and became fog, or fell in rain. The cooled surface broke into soil. The accumulated moisture, the pools, and the seas were gathered together. And finally, somewhere in the water or on the land, something that was alive appeared. It is reasonable to suppose that this first life was in unicellular organisms, but behind these cells was the insistent impulse of the spirit, the great life in search of expression. And soon, the organisms that had too much life to express with one cell had two cells, and then many, and still more life was poured into them. Multicellular organisms were formed: plants, trees, vertebrates, and mammals, many of them with strange forms, but all were perfect according to their kind, for everything that God does is perfect. Undoubtedly, there were rude and almost monstrous forms of animal and plant life, but everything filled its purpose in its time, and everything was very good. Then came another day, the great day of the evolutionary process, a day when the morning stars sang together and the children of God shouted for joy to behold the beginning of the end. For humanity, the object aimed at from the beginning, had appeared on the scene, an ape-like being, little different from the animals around him in appearance, but infinitely different in the capacity for development and thought, art and beauty, architecture and song, poetry and music. All these were unrealized possibilities in the soul of the ape-like human, and for his time and type, he was very good. It is God who works in you to do his will and his good pleasure, says St. Paul. From the day the first person appeared, God began to work in people, putting more and more of himself into each succeeding generation, urging them on to greater achievements and to better social, governmental, and domestic conditions. Those who look back on ancient history and see the terrible conditions that existed, the barbarities, idolatries, and sufferings, and reading about God in connection with these things are inclined to feel that he was cruel and unjust to people, must stop and think. From the ape person to the Christ man to come, the race had to rise. And this could only be accomplished by the successive unfolding of the various latent powers and possibilities in the human brain. God wished to express himself, to live in form, and not only that, but to live in a form through which he could express himself on the highest moral and spiritual plane. God wanted to develop a form in which he could live as a God and manifest as a God. This was the objective of the evolutionary force. The ages of war, bloodshed, suffering, injustice, and cruelty were tempered in many ways with love and justice as time advanced. And this was developing the human brain to a point where it should be capable of giving full expression to the love and justice of God. The end is not yet near. God does not aim at the perfection of a few chosen specimens for display, like the large fruits at the top of the box, but rather at the glorification of the race. The time will come when the kingdom of God will be established on earth, the time foretold by the dreamer of the Isle of Patmos, when there will be no more crying nor pain, for the first things have passed away, and there will be no more night there. Chapter 20. Serving God. I have brought you this far through the 2 preceding chapters with the goal of finally resolving the question of duty. This is a question that puzzles and perplexes many people who are serious and sincere, and it gives them a great deal of difficulty in its solution. When they begin to make something of themselves and to practice the science of being great, they necessarily find themselves compelled to rearrange many of their relationships. There are friends who perhaps must be alienated. There are relatives who do not understand and who feel that they are being neglected in some way. The truly great person is often considered selfish by a large circle of people who are connected to them and who feel that they could grant them more benefits than they do. The question at the outset is it my duty to make the best of myself regardless of everything else? Or should I wait until I can do so without friction or without causing harm to anyone? This is the question of duty to yourself versus duty to others. The duty of each person to the world was discussed at length in the preceding pages, and I now give some consideration to the idea of duty to God. An immense number of people have a great deal of uncertainty, not to say anxiety, about what they should do for God. The amount of work and service that is done for Him in this country in the form of church work, etc., is enormous. An immense amount of human energy is spent in what is called serving God. I propose to briefly consider what serving God is and how a person can best serve God. And I think I can make it clear that the conventional idea of what constitutes service to God is all wrong. When Moses went down to Egypt to bring the Hebrews out of slavery, his demand to Pharaoh, in the name of the divine, was, "Let the people go so that they may serve me." He led them into the desert and there instituted a new form of worship that led many people to suppose that worship constitutes the service of God, although later God Himself distinctly declared that He did not care about ceremonies, burnt offerings, or oblations, and the teachings of Jesus, if understood correctly, would put an end to organized worship in temples. God lacks nothing that people could make for Him with their hands, their bodies, or their voices. St. Paul points out that a person can do nothing for God, for God needs nothing. The view of evolution that we have taken shows that God seeks expression through humanity. Throughout all the successive ages in which His Spirit has exhorted people to raise their level, God has continued to seek expression. Each generation of people is more like God than the preceding generation. Each generation of people demands more than the preceding generation. Beautiful homes, pleasant surroundings, pleasant work, rest, travel, and opportunity for study. I have heard some short-sighted economists argue that today's workers should certainly be fully satisfied because their condition is much better than that of the worker 200 years ago who slept in a windowless hut on a floor covered with reeds, in the company of his pigs. If that man had everything he could use to live all the life he knew how to live, he was perfectly satisfied, and if he lacked it, he was not content. Today's person has a comfortable home and many things, in fact, that were unknown a short time ago, and if they have everything they can use to live all the life they can imagine, they will be satisfied. But they are not content. God has raised the race so far in such a way that any ordinary person can imagine a better and more desirable life than they are able to live under existing conditions. And as long as this is true, as long as a person can think and imagine clearly a more desirable life, they will be discontented with the life they have to live. And rightly so. That discontent is the Spirit of God urging people to live in more desirable conditions. It is God seeking expression in humanity. He works in us for the will and to do. The only service you can render to God is to give expression to what He is trying to give the world through you. The only service you can render to God is to make the most of yourself so that God can live in you to the fullest of His possibilities. In a previous work in this series, The Science of Getting Rich, I refer to the boy at the piano, the music in whose soul could not find expression through his untrained hands. This is a good illustration of the way the Spirit of God is above, around, and in all of us, seeking to do great things with us as soon as we train our hands and feet, our minds, brains, and bodies to do His service. Your first duty to God, to yourself, and to the world is to make yourself as great a personality, in every sense, as you can. And this, it seems to me, resolves the question of duty. There are one or two other things that can be addressed in the closing of this chapter. I wrote about opportunities in a previous chapter. I said, in a general way, that it is within the capacity of every person to become great, just as in The Science of Getting Rich. I stated that it is within the capacity of every person to become wealthy. But these broad generalizations need to be qualified. There are people who have such materialistic minds that they are absolutely incapable of understanding the philosophy set forth in these books. There is a great mass of people who have lived and worked until they are practically unable to think in this way, and they cannot receive the message. Something can be done for them through demonstrations, that is, by living the life before them. But this is the only way to awaken them. The world needs more demonstrations than it needs teachings. For this mass of people, our duty is to become as great in personality as possible, so that they can see and desire to do the same. It is our duty to become great for their sake, so that we can help prepare the world so that the next generation will have better conditions for thinking. One other point. I am frequently written to by people who wish to make something of themselves and move forward in the world, but who are held back by family ties, having others more or less dependent on them, whom they fear would suffer if they were left alone. In general, I advise such people to move without fear and to make the most of themselves. If there is a family loss, it will be only temporary and apparent, for within a short time, if you follow the lead of the Spirit, you will be able to take better care of your dependents than you ever have before. Chapter 21. A Mental Exercise. The purpose of mental exercises should not be misunderstood. There is no virtue in charms or formulated words. There are no shortcuts to development through the repetition of prayers or incantations. A mental exercise is an exercise, not in the repetition of words, but in the thinking of certain thoughts. The phrases we hear repeatedly become convictions, as Goethe says, and the thoughts we repeatedly think become habitual, and they make us what we are. The purpose of doing a mental exercise is that you may think certain thoughts repeatedly until you form the habit of thinking them. Then they will be your thoughts all the time. Taken in the right way and with an understanding of their purpose, mental exercises are of great value. But taken as most people take them, they are worse than useless. The thoughts embodied in the following exercise are the ones you want to think. You should do the exercise once or twice a day, but you should think the thoughts continuously. That is, do not think them twice a day for a set time and then forget them until it is time to do the exercise again. The exercise is to impress you with the material for continuous thought. Take a time when you can have 20 minutes to half an hour of quiet and proceed first to make yourself physically comfortable. Lie at ease in a comfortable chair, or on a sofa, or on a bed. It is best to lie stretched out on your back. If you have no other time, do the exercise as you lie down at night and before you rise in the morning. First, let your attention pass over your body from the top of your head to the soles of your feet, relaxing every muscle as you go. Relax completely. And then put physical and other ailments out of your mind. Let your attention pass over your spinal column and out through the nerves to the extremities. And as you think this, think, "My nerves are in perfect order throughout my body. They obey my will, and I have great neurological strength. Next, turn your attention to the lungs and think, I am breathing deeply and quietly, and the air goes to every cell of my lungs, which are in perfect condition. My blood is purified and made clean. Next, to the heart. My heart is beating strongly and steadily, and my circulation is perfect even to the extremities. Next, to the digestive system. My stomach and my intestines perform their work perfectly. My food is digested and assimilated, and my body is rebuilt and nourished. My liver, my kidneys, and my bladder perform their various functions without pain or effort. I am perfectly well. My body is resting, my mind is quiet, and my soul is at peace. I have no anxiety about financial or other matters. God, who is within me, is also in everything I want, impelling them toward me. Everything I want has already been given to me. I have no anxiety about my health, for I am perfectly well. I have no worry or fear of anything. I place myself above any temptation to moral evil. I expel all greed, selfishness, and petty personal ambition. I have no envy, malice, or enmity toward any living soul. I will not follow any course of action that is not in accordance with my highest ideals. I am right, and I will do what is right. Point of view. Everything is well with the world. It is perfect and is advancing toward fullness. I will contemplate the facts of social, political, and industrial life only from this high point of view. Behold, all of it is very good. I will see all people, all my acquaintances, friends, neighbors, and the members of my own household in the same way. All of them are good. Nothing is wrong with the universe. Nothing can be wrong but my own personal attitude, and from this time on I maintain that attitude to be right. All my trust is in God. Consecration. I will obey my soul and be faithful to that which is highest within me. I will seek within me the pure idea of what is right in all things, and when I find it, I will express it in my outward life. I will abandon everything I have outgrown for the best I can think of. I will have the highest thoughts about all my relations, and my manner and action will express those thoughts. I give my body to be governed by my mind. I give my mind to the dominion of my soul, and I give my soul to the guidance of God. Identification. There is only one substance and one source, and from it I am made, and with it I am one. It is my Father. I proceeded and came from Him. My Father and I are one, and my Father is greater than I, and I do His will. I surrender myself to conscious unity with the pure Spirit. There is only one, and that one is in every place. I am one with the eternal consciousness. Idealization. Form a mental image of yourself as you want to be, and at the highest elevation your imagination can conceive. Dwell upon this for some time, holding the thought, this is what I really am. It is an image of my perfection and advancement toward fullness. I will contemplate the facts of social, political, and industrial life only from this high point of view. Behold, all of it is very good. I will see all people, all my acquaintances, friends, neighbors, and the members of my own household in the same way. All of them are good. Nothing is wrong with the universe. Nothing can be wrong but my own personal attitude, and from this time on, I maintain that attitude to be right. All my trust is in God. Realization. I appropriate the power to become what I want to be, and to do what I want to do. I exercise creative energy. All the power that exists is mine. I will arise and go forward with power and perfect confidence. I will do mighty works in the strength of the Lord my God. I will trust and not be afraid, for God is with me. Chapter 22. A summary of the science of being great. All people are made of the one intelligent substance, and therefore all contain the same essential powers and possibilities. Greatness is equally inherent in everyone and can be manifested by everyone. Every person can become great. Every component of God is a component of humanity. A person can overcome both heredity and circumstances by exercising the soul's inherent creative power. To become great, the soul must act and must govern the mind and body. A person's knowledge is limited, and they fall into error through ignorance. To avoid this, they must connect their soul with the universal spirit. The universal spirit is the intelligent substance from which all things come. It is in and through all things. All things are known to this universal mind, and a person can unite with it in such a way as to enter into all knowledge. To do this, a person must expel from themselves everything that separates them from God. They must be willing to live the divine life and must rise above all moral temptations. They must abandon every course of action that is not in accordance with their highest ideals. They must achieve the correct point of view, recognizing that God is all in all and that there is nothing bad. They must see that nature, society, government, and industry are perfect in their current stage and are advancing toward fullness, and that all men and women everywhere are good and perfect. They must know that everything is well with the world and unite with God for the completion of the perfect work. It is only when a person sees God as the great advancing presence in everyone and good in everything that they can ascend to true greatness. They must consecrate themselves to the service of the highest that is within them, obeying the voice of the soul. There is an inner light in every person that continually urges them to the highest, and they must be guided by this light if they want to become great. They must recognize the fact of being one with the Father, and consciously affirm this oneness for themselves and for everyone else. They must know that they are a God among gods and act accordingly. They must have absolute faith in their own perceptions of the truth and begin at home to act in accordance with those perceptions. When they see the true and correct course in small things, they must follow that course. They must stop acting thoughtlessly and begin to think, and they must be sincere in their thinking. They must form a mental conception of themselves at the highest level and hold this conception until it becomes their habitual thought form. They must continuously keep this thought form in mind. They must externally perceive and express this thought form in their actions. They must do everything they do in a great way. In dealing with their family, their neighbors, acquaintances, and friends, they must make every act an expression of their ideal. The person who reaches the right point of view and makes the full consecration, and who fully idealizes themselves as great, and who makes every act, no matter how trivial, an expression of the ideal, has already achieved greatness. Everything they do will be done in a great way. They will make themselves known and will be recognized as a personality of power. They will receive knowledge by inspiration and will know everything they need to know. They will receive all the material wealth that they form in their thoughts, and they will lack nothing good. They will have the ability to deal with any combination of circumstances that may arise, and their development and progress will be continuous and rapid. Great achievements will seek them out, and all people will be pleased to honor them. Because of its special value to the student of the science of being great, I conclude this book by offering a part of Emerson's essay called The Oversoul. This great essay is fundamental, showing the fundamental principles of monism and the science of greatness. I recommend that the student study it with the greatest care in conjunction with this book. What is the universal sense of want and ignorance, but the fine innuendo by which the great soul makes its enormous statement? Why do people feel that the natural history of humanity has never been written, but is always leaving behind what you have said about it, and becomes old, and books on metaphysics are worthless. The philosophy of 6,000 years has not explored the chambers and storehouses of the soul. In its experiments, there has always remained, in the last analysis, a residue that could not be resolved. A person is a stream whose source is hidden. Always our being is flowing into us, we do not know from where. The most exact calculator has no prescience that an incalculable something may not leap up into the next moment. I am constrained every moment to acknowledge a higher origin for events than the will which I call mine. Just as it happens with events, the same happens with thoughts. When I observe that running river, which from regions I do not see, for a season pours its waters into me, I see that I am a pensioner, not a cause, but a surprised spectator of this ethereal water. That I desire and look up, and place myself in the attitude of reception, but from some foreign energy the visions come. The supreme critic on all the errors of the past and present, and the only prophet of what must be, is that great nature in which we rest, as the earth is in the soft arms of the atmosphere, that unity, that over-soul, with which the particular being of each person is contained and made one with all others, that common heart of which all sincere conversation is the worship, to which all right action is submission. That overwhelming reality which confuses our artifices and talents and constrains each person to pass through what is and to speak from their character and not from their tongue, and which always tends and aims more and more to pass into our thought and hand and to become wisdom and virtue and power and beauty. We live in succession, in division, in parts, in particles. And yet within a person dwells the soul of the whole, the sensible silence, the universal beauty with which all parts and particles are equally related, the eternal one. And this profound power in which we exist and whose beauty is completely accessible to all of us, is not only self-sufficient and perfect at every moment, but the action of seeing and the thing seen, the observer and the spectacle, the subjective and the objective are one. We see the world piece by piece, as the sun, the moon, the animal, the tree, but the whole, of which these are the shining parts, is the soul. It is only by the vision of this wisdom that the horoscope of the times can be read, and it is only by resuming our best thoughts, by yielding to the spirit of prophecy which is innate in every person, that we know what it says. The words of every person who speaks of that life must sound vain to those who do not dwell in the same thought of their own part. I dare not speak for it. My words do not carry its sublime sense. They are short and cold. Only it itself can inspire whomever it wants, and behold, its speech must be lyrical and sweet and universal as the rising of the wind. Nevertheless, I wish, even with profane words, if sacred I cannot use, to indicate the paradise of this divinity, and to report the clues that I have gathered from the transcendent simplicity and the energy of the highest law. If we consider what happens in conversations, in daydreams, in regrets, in moments of passion, in surprises, in the instruction of dreams in which we often find ourselves unmasked, the saliva disguises only by enlarging and enhancing a real element and forcing it into our distinct note. We will catch many clues that will enlarge and illuminate the knowledge of nature's secret. Everything will show that the soul in a person is not an organ, but animates and exercises all organs. It is not a function, like the power of memory, of calculation, of comparison, but it uses them as hands and feet. It is not a faculty, but a light. It is not the intellect or the will, but the master of the intellect and the will. It is the vast background of our being in which they reside, an immensity not possessed and which cannot be possessed. From within or from behind, a light shines through us on things, and makes us perceive that we are nothing, but the light is all. A person is the facade of a temple where all wisdom and all good remain. What we commonly call a person, the eating, drinking, planting, counting, does not represent them as we know them, but misrepresents them. We do not respect them, but the soul, whose organ they are, if they would allow it to appear through their action, would make our knees bend. When it breathes through their intellect, it is genius. When it flows through their affection, it is love. According to its own law, and not by arithmetic, is the rhythm of its progress to be computed. The advances of the soul are not made by gradation, as can be represented by movement in a straight line, but rather by the ascent of status, as can be represented by the metamorphosis, from the egg to the worm, from the worm to the fly. The growth of genius is of a certain total character, which does not first advance the chosen individual over John, then Adam, then Richard, and give each the pain of detected inferiority, but at each step of growth the person expands there where they work, passing, at each pulse, classes, populations of people. With each divine impulse the mind transforms the thin shell of the visible and finite, and goes out into eternity, and breathes in and out its air. This is the law of moral and mental gain. The simple elevation, as by specific levitation, not for a particular virtue but for the dimension of all virtues. They are in the spirit that contains them all. The soul is superior to all the particularities of merit. The soul requires purity, but purity is not it. It requires justice, but justice is not it. It requires beneficence, but it is a little better. So that there is a kind of dissent and accommodation felt when we go out speaking of moral nature, to exhort to a virtue that it commands. For, to the soul in its pure action, all virtues are natural and not painfully acquired. Speak to their heart and a person suddenly becomes virtuous. Within the same feeling is the germ of intellectual growth, which obeys the same law. Those who are capable of humility, of justice, of love, of aspiration, are already on a platform that commands the sciences and the arts, speech and poetry, action and grace. For whoever dwells in this moral blessedness already anticipates those special powers that people so value, just as love does justice to all the gifts of the beloved object. The lover has no talent, no skill, that passes for nothing with his enamored maiden, however little she possesses of kindred faculties. And the heart that abandons itself to the Supreme Mind finds itself related to all its works and will travel a royal road of knowledge and particular powers. For, by ascending to this primary and autochthonous sentiment, we come from our remote station located on the periphery instantaneously to the center of the world, where, as in God's cabinet, we see causes and anticipate the universe, which is only a slow effect. It's great that you made it to the end. If you enjoyed this audiobook, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more content. Your support helps us to keep growing.